Go.
Hey everyone, this is Amazing Fantasy Football. I am Josh, and you are,
Christopher.
and he is Chris, and we are here to talk about some quarterbacks today. Everyone who tuned into our last episode, downloaded it and listened. I mean, we're not on the radio, but whatever. Um, we did some preseason top 24 and how those guys ended up, and now we're going to do our top 12 quarterbacks of how they, not ours, but how quarterbacks finished on the year, right?
Absolutely. I'm excited, man.
And I would like to have a disclaimer that we did do this show once already, and we had some technical difficulties, so we're a week late, and we're doing it again.
And deal with it.
Also, yeah, and also, not everyone's, especially with quarterbacks, leagues can really vary in scoring. So sometimes, you might have a 4 points per touchdown league or a 6 point. We, I believe, are doing this based on a 5 point, and it's slightly different than some other leagues that we're in. So it might be a little bit different league to league and everything, but this is the list we ended up with. So in this format that we pulled all these names from.
hmm
So yeah. How you
It's a
doing
pretty
today, Chris?
universal format. I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm excited about the show, about uh, about the information we have on the players, about the new scenes we've got. Yeah, excited.
I'm excited to see the Browns just get walloped by the
Yeah,
Chiefs today.
yeah. We're doing this on a
I, I'm
Sunday.
I'm I'm happy. I love it that they're in the playoffs,
Mhm.
but yeah, they're not. They don't stay in the. They don't stay in the snowball's chance.
I think I was chatting
Anyways,
the other day, and somebody threw out the proverbial, give us your Super Bowl picks, and I think, well, I know I went Saints over Bills, so I'm still alive as of
I'm
Sunday
doing
morning.
I'm doing Chiefs Packers with Packers winning it all.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. Either of those teams,
Bold
any of
prediction.
those teams.
Anyways, I got some new comics on my wall here. One I bought, one I had. This one right here may interest you. It is Spider-Man number 400.
Nice.
You can't really tell it because it's a special edition cover. And over here I have a Silver Surfer number one from the 80s relaunch of it, not the original 70s one. So yeah, I mean whatever. But I just want to put some different
They
stuff
look
on my wall.
awesome. They look awesome.
Thank you.
I'd like to get
Thank you. I
more.
drew them myself.
I like to get more decor going for sure. But yeah, those look awesome. I have a couple,
Thanks.
not in that same type of frame, but a similar glass to glass pressed frame. Nothing quite so rare or fancy like yours, but Spider-Man number one, Todd McFarlane series from the '90s, because
Yeah.
that's when I collected.
Yeah, I mean, these aren't super rare. They're, maybe the Thor like 237
Mhm.
237 up there, which is the first appearance of Beta Ray Bill, is probably worth more than both of these, but whatever.
But they're your
Anyways,
faves.
let's move on to these quarterbacks here. How about that?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
So, like I said, we have our top 12 quarterbacks, and rankings may be a little different in league to league, but let's start off with the number one quarterback here. We got Mr. Josh Allen. Josh Allen. This dude really, really stepped up his game in the offseason. I mean, from like 2019 to the 2020 season, he's ended up with over 4,500 passing yards, 37 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. As you can see on the slide here, he had over 101 or 102 rushing attempts for 421 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns. That's really good too.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, that's the thing with Josh Allen, is he'll get you some rushing yards.
That's the
It's
icing
pretty
on the
good.
cake. Yeah,
He lost
4,500
six.
yards, almost 40 passing touchdowns, and 8 on the ground. That's a win
Yep,
in
that
fantasy
and I believe he was drafted in the 4th round was his ADP, so, it's still early for what we like to do with quarterbacks,
for
but
sure.
hey, man, I mean, you were happy with Josh Allen pretty much all season except for that 4-week time span, and, I mean, he did face some bad teams, and he wasn't very good, so,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, I
I
did
mean,
put
he
here.
was just below 15 points per game in that 4-week time span, so
y-
whatever.
Yeah, I
You got
remember us
anything else
having
to say about our number 1 quarterback here?
Yeah, we had a couple of point average difference for whatever reason. Maybe I was clicked on the wrong website, wrong scoring format. But to your
Yeah, I think you
point,
were in the wrong scoring format.
yeah, to your point, weeks 5 through 8, I had 16.06. Seemed to coincide with both running backs playing very badly. Maybe some offensive line injuries going on, but I think big picture with Allen, we can chalk that up to some either injuries or bad offensive line play, and kind of just be real secure in knowing he's going to deliver year in and year out. He got him their first playoff win since 1995. He was
Mhm.
behind only Rodgers and Watson in completion percentage at .692. Nice. He just missed 70%. So he really impressed me with what he can do with his arm this year. I was had him pegged wrong.
Yeah, most quarterbacks don't usually make that big of a jump in completion. He was at like 54% last year
Mm,
and hit almost 70 this year. That's a huge, huge jump. And that's why at first I wasn't a believer in it. I was just like, this is a fluke. Those first four games, whatever. And
for
then,
sure.
and then I was like, well, here's the Josh Allen that we all thought he was, or that we all expected him to be. And then he finished out the season. He's finished out the season so strong.
Yeah,
So
exactly. To squash all those
I think we
doubts.
can
Yeah.
count on it again next year too. And they were saying yesterday, against the Ravens that he did really put in a lot of off-season work into trying to fix his accuracy issues. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's awesome.
It
That's the thing I
shows.
like to hear. I like to hear that sort of thing and not just, oh, this is weird, out of nowhere. Like he's like, I'm like, yeah.
You like
Anyways,
to hear the positive
let's hope it
vibes
continues.
coming out of Bill's camp. Yeah, for
Yep,
sure.
yep. Let's move on to our number two guy. How about that?
Absolutely.
Cool. Our number two guy is Mr. Kyler Murray, number two on our list and number one in Chris's heart. Why don't you talk about Kyler Murray here?
Well, as the slide shows us, the statistics are very good. Interceptions a little high, but he's still young. It's 12 interceptions, 3,971 yards, 26 passing touchdowns. But as we kind of touched on with Josh Allen, the things you get on the ground with Kyler are really what separates him. Especially when you get 11 rushing touchdowns. Now, those will vary from year to year. Those are hard to predict in terms of what the quarterback's going to do on the ground with rushing touchdowns. 811 yards is a little more predictable, but we've also seen Russell Wilson kind of diminish in that area, depending on Pete Carroll's kind of, I don't know, whatever he decides to do. Um, I absolutely love watching him play football. That's coming from a University of Texas and a Baylor fan. So, there was bias against him when he was playing in school. He's something special, and he's showing us that not only is he vastly superior to Baker, he might be the best quarterback in Oklahoma history. Although, hey, Baker's the one in the playoffs. He's been paired with a perfect coaching staff to maximize his fantasy potential. Not that that's why they did it, but it sure helps us out when you start talking about the volume that you're going to see every week. They spread it out 3 and 4 wideouts, and they hurry it up quite a bit. So that's what I like about him in fantasy terms. And again, I love watching the guy play football. In terms of rushing touchdowns, remember Allen was tied for third with 8. Yeah, how about 11? We already touched on that. Only second only to Lamar in rushing yards. That's no surprise at 811 rushing yards. I'd like to see him limit the interceptions like I touched on earlier and maybe crest that 30 passing touchdowns mark in the coming seasons for fantasy purposes. But that's what I've got on Mr. Kyler Murray.
Let the record show that I am not the Kyler Murray fan of this group. I don't think he's very good. I I mean, he's played okay, but he's also had some bad games. Certainly against New England in week 12, he only scored 8.9 points. And I mean, he has good, like, he's at almost 24 and a half points per game. Great. I just, I'm not a believer, man. I really, and like, I know the numbers say different and everything. I don't know. I feel like there's times that he's not seeing the field properly. And maybe it's just because he's on the shorter side. I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe he'll fix all that. I mean, this is what, only his sophomore season, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think one of
Yeah. So
his
maybe he'll get better next year, and and I'm willing to be wrong on it too. And because I feel like Kyler, you're gonna have to take him fourth round, maybe. Like I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. That'll be a theme in today's show. You'll hear me and Josh often
it's
mention, pump the brakes on the value of this guy because again, we're talking about 12 quarterbacks here. We like to wait on
yeah.
quarterbacks, but to your point, Josh, one of his negatives, one of his detractions was coming out was size, and that's why people kind of were
He's really short.
their jaws were agape when he went 101. I guess is what I'm saying. So there's still that discussion to be had for sure because sometimes you just can't do anything about what God gave you, and he is 5'8", 5'10", whatever he may be. But I think he runs smart like Russell.
All right, that's
You
cool.
know, guy like Josh Allen
Let's
doesn't
move
have to
let's
worry
move
about
on.
that.
Let's move on. Let's move on.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. I mistakenly let you gush over Kyler Murray. Uh,
Gushing over Kyler Murray is never a
let you.
mistake. But let's move on.
Let's move on to our number 3 guy. Number 3 and is Aaron Rodgers here. We got Aaron Rodgers. He averaged 24 points per game. He only had one game this season that was below 18 points, which is pretty good. And that was his really bad week 6 game against the Bucks. He only scored 5.8 points. On the flip side of that, he only topped 30 points twice. So like he didn't have those explosion games like Josh Allen or Kyler Murray all that often.
Mhm.
I mean, he was just freaking consistent week to week. He was getting you usually like 22 to 27 points per week, which is great. That's great. And for a guy that his ADP was 10th round, I mean, he was undrafted in the keeper league that we're in together.
That was ridiculous.
Undrafted.
Undrafted.
That's crazy. I picked him off the waiver wire after week
Mm.
1.
Now it's in Iowa, and there might be
That's
some biases there. I don't
I don't
know.
know because
It is odd.
most people in that league aren't. I don't think there's any Packers fans, but still,
I
like,
think I took him in the 14th round in a 12-team league. One quarterback.
yeah, like, yeah,
That's
that's
ridiculous. Yeah.
crazy. It's not going to be that way next year. I kind of wonder if, just to kind of speculate, if Aaron Rodgers gets the MVP, like everyone's kind of talking he will. If he gets the MVP and wins the Super Bowl, man, if I was Aaron Rodgers, I'd be like, I'm done. Drop the mic, walk out.
No, I mean, I think it's something you always have to bring up with that type of
I mean,
when you're in a
he's
certain age, at a certain age,
37,
and you have the opportunity to go out on top. I think you always have to have that conversation. But no, I think he's got so many prime years ahead of him. I think we've seen
I think so too,
Brady,
but
Breeze, and Peyton play till they're 40 and past it, and Favre
I
speak of the devil.
I kind of wonder if the Packers just rubbed Aaron Rodgers wrong enough that maybe if he
Well,
does go,
right.
maybe if he does get the MVP and he does win the Super Bowl, he's just
Mhm.
like, I mean, honestly, it don't get better than that. And at 38, you got a career ahead of you. He's going to be hosting Jeopardy when he's done with football this year.
Oh, is that the?
He's doing
Is
a
Oh, that's right.
yeah, he's doing a guest
We
host
lost to
thing.
Alex Trebek. That's right. God rest his
Yeah,
soul. Yeah.
yeah. R.I.P. Alex Trebek.
Yeah. No, outside of football, interest outside of football would influence
I
a
just
person like that. But
I
I don't
don't have
see.
much else to say about Rodgers. I mean, everyone knows that
Sure.
he's good. He had a down year last year, but hey, man, whatever.
I mean, 48 touchdowns
He's
and
been
only
great
five
this year.
interceptions. He gets out of bed
Yeah,
and throws 40 touchdowns. It seemed like every Sunday we were tuning in. He's thrown 3 or 4 touchdowns, and Green Bay's letting off the pedal in the fourth quarter, and he's already thrown 3 or 4 and ran around untouched. This is a very good offense, and he's not necessarily the piece you want of that offense. More to come on that later, in our shows. But he's going to play well, for sure.
yeah, and I think because of this year, he's going to have an inflated draft value next season, but he's not going to. But this is the type of guy when you're drafting next year, that next season, I should say.
Mhm.
This is the type of value you're looking for, is a guy in the 10th round that's going to end up potentially being a
Yes,
top 5 quarterback.
you want
And like
2021's Aaron Rodgers. You don't want 2020.
weekly.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, you don't want 2019 Aaron Rodgers. Yeah,
Exactly.
because you drafted him high and he busted on you.
Hmm.
You know, you don't want you want 2019 Lamar Jackson, not 2020 Lamar Jackson,
Yep.
the
You
guy
want
that
them
went in like the 13th round and was
exactly.
by far and away the number one scoring quarterback last year.
Yep.
So,
You want to find that
yeah.
value. You want to find the next guy to break out, if you will,
You want to move on to
or a guy
you
with
want
suppressed value like Aaron Rodgers.
Yep. Let's move on to number 4 here. Our number 4 guy is Patrick Mahomes, of course. He wasn't quite the historic season that he had like 2 years ago when he had, what was it, 55 touchdowns. He only had 38 this year, only 6 interceptions, a little over 4,700 yards. 63 rushing attempts. Most of those, I'm assuming a lot of them were scrambles. The dude can run the ball. He will. He just,
Sure.
like, I don't think they're really like, especially since they gave him a giant contract, they're probably not drawing up like running plays for him all that often. So yeah. Yeah, I don't really have much to say about Patrick Mahomes other than everyone knows he's great. He'll go. I will say that he was drafted in the first round, which we do not advocate whatsoever.
Nope.
And I
Hmm.
mean, I know that there's people out there that'll be like, yeah, I got the number 4 quarterback on the season in the fourth round. He definitely outscored guys around him, like running backs and everything. It's like, yeah, but you can pick up a quarterback off the waiver wire and potentially get a top 8 week out of him. You usually can't pick up a running back off the waiver wire and get a top 8 running back off the waiver wire, right?
It's not likely. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's not going to happen.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Plus you potentially have to, I mean, you usually have to fill 2 running back slots where you only have to fill 1 quarterback slot. I mean, unless it's a super flex league, blah, blah, blah. But still, yeah. Super flex league, sure, take Mahomes in the first round.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you're going to have to pay that price for sure. You're going to have to
One
definitely
QB
pony up.
league? No, no, no,
Mm-mm.
no. I don't have anything else to say. Everyone knows he's great. I said that before, but still, I just he's a really, really amazing real NFL quarterback. He's a terrible value in fantasy.
Terrible value. That's puts it in a nutshell. I just had that he was of the top. I believe I left out top 5 quarterbacks and passing touchdowns. He is one of 2 with single-digit interceptions on the year. We just talked about the other one in Aaron Rodgers. So in terms of splitting hairs in a super flex league, maybe that's a helpful statistic. But yeah, value's not there.
I'm sorry, what did you say that again?
Of the top 5 quarterbacks in
Oh, of the
passing
top
touch,
5. Okay.
yeah, he is one of 2 with single-digit interceptions.
In the top 5.
Yep,
In single digit interceptions.
he's one of 2.
Why don't you move on to the next slide and I'll prove you wrong.
Oh, darn it. I do have of the top QBs in passing touchdowns, and I'm like, that doesn't sound right. It should say top 5, I think.
And
Top
why don't you move on
10?
to the next slide? Our number 5 guy is Deshaun Watson, who has despite what looked like a really bad receiving core, but despite losing Hopkins, threw for over 4,800 yards, 33 touchdowns, and what's this? What? 7 interceptions. Hey, Chris, is is 7 a single digit number?
Last time I checked, it is.
And isn't that a number 5 next to Deshaun Watson's name?
I think it was the top 5 in passing touchdowns, not top 5 in fantasy points.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I said.
Okay.
Roll the tape back.
I don't want to. I'm right in my head.
And that's what that's what we're all
I
concerned
have
about.
been up since like 5:30 this morning too. So
Right, right. No,
it's been a long day already.
it should have been a clear
um
sentence to be fair, but yeah, I know that. I think we're good.
okay. Anyways, so he had over 400 rushing yards, which that seems a little low for Deshaun Watson, but I think he was just more of a pocket passer this season. And you know what? Like, look at his passing numbers. It kind of shows.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like Will Fuller really stepped up his game. Brandon Cooks was there to help out. When those guys, I don't think I have anything written down for his last few weeks, but yeah, when those guys seemed to fade, it was yeah, and this is a guy who is being very vocal about how he does not want to play for the Titans next season.
Yeah, yeah.
Or
Ironically, you
I
you
always call them the Titans, the Texans.
oh whoops. Yeah, you mentioned at the top of the show, you're like, FYI, we're re-recording this. So it's just ironic that now this past probably day and a half at the most, we've been talking
It's been 4 or 5 days
of
overall, but
press
yeah,
on
it's just
on
gotten
on this.
worse and worse.
Yeah, so and he's one of those, like, correct me if I'm wrong. He comes off as one of the nice guys in the NFL. So I think he's of the type that really doesn't want to do this, but he feels it's almost necessary to save his career. A couple of notes I had kind of
Yeah.
touch on
Well,
that.
this is also
Mhm.
also after their previous GM slash head coach, Bill O'Brien, like traded away DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, oh
He
yeah,
didn't want that.
yes, yes. This has
They
been
and
brewing.
for essentially for a bag of balls, and I'm sure the team likes. I'm sure Deshaun Watson gets along with fine with David Johnson, but he's just like, why did we could have drafted a running back, you know? Like, why did we
Yeah,
just
running back.
it's just a team that is it's bad decision after bad decision, and it's a team that has and like it's a front office that has let these bad decisions happen.
If I'm a
Like,
Texans fan, I'm worried.
I would be too. I just don't know what team is going to do anything for Deshaun Watson. I mean, they're going to be asking for 2 first-round picks.
And they might get it. I don't know. I think he has every right to be concerned. I think he has a right to force the franchise to do something and put some talent behind him. He was behind only Carson Wentz at second in the league with 49 sacks, and he's still completing 70% of his passes, and he's still. I mean, if it weren't for 4 wins, he'd be in the MVP conversation. We just talked about.
Yep.
It just it's a shame. It is the only word that comes to mind for me. And but we're a fantasy show, so in fantasy terms, he's going to be just fine. He's going to get the volume, assuming he plays.
The only 2
He'll get the
teams that I
volume.
could see actually making a trade for him would be the Jets
I was just going to say
or the
Jets is the first
Dolphins.
thing that comes to mind for me.
The
Dolphins,
Jets or the Dolphins,
no.
and then send Tua along with their first probably both of their first-round
Well,
picks.
okay. I will. I'll entertain this from the Miami point of view.
I don't
You
wanna
would
go
do
into
that.
like, no,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
no,
That's a good
agree
point.
or
Good point.
disagree.
Agree that I'd do it if I was Miami. Agree that they should try. I don't know
The
if I'd do
Jets,
that
they
for the
probably would the
Jets for
Jets
sure. Yeah, yeah. We're on the same page there.
because they have the first overall pick, and they'll dangle that as or no, they don't. The Jags do.
Jacksonville, and they have Urban Meyer. Hey, I mean, he didn't coach Urban Meyer, but Urban did Urban play
Yeah,
against
anyways,
Deshaun?
let's
Anyway,
just save that for a different show.
right?
Alright, let's
Yeah,
move on to number 6 here.
a lot of
Deshaun
speculation.
Watson's great. If he goes to Miami, I don't know how I would feel about it. I would certainly like Preston Williams a lot. I don't know about Devontae Parker.
Hmm.
I'm not sold on that guy. Let's move on to, number 6 and number 2 in your heart.
There's a lot of numbers in my heart, I guess. Continue.
Number 6 on our list and number 2 in Chris's heart is Russell Wilson. Why don't you talk about Russ here? We both love him, man. So go ahead. You're not going to get really any disagreement.
Right, right. Well, they finally let Russell cook. They
Hmm.
did, didn't they? I guess Seattle likes to get conservative right before the playoffs because they kind of reined it in. You saw his volume numbers, his production go down. You saw Lockett kind of become even more hit or miss. DK was still pretty dependable in those terms, but
But Lockett became more hit or miss because DK is the
the mate
man.
is the man exactly. That's what I
He
mean.
is
Is
the
it's
man.
DK's value didn't didn't take too big of a hit. But the team as a whole, the offense just kind of, like I said, got more conservative.
I think teams started to figure them out.
Yeah,
And
could be that too.
yeah.
Yeah. But we saw historic pace before that. Only 2 rushing touchdowns, but over 500 rushing yards for Russell. We touched on it earlier in the show. There's this set of QBs seems to be kind of the mold. They run smarter. They don't try and go head first or do a helicopter over the line. But Russell has always been a smart runner, so you can depend on a little bit of a floor there. He's still going to be valuable in fantasy terms, but I don't know about where he's going to end up in ADP. I might start to.
Well, this year he was the 3rd quarterback drafted
Is that 6th round?
at no, it was let me see there 4th, the beginning the front
Yeah,
half of the 4th round. It was at 41.8.
yeah, I'm definitely out on that. 6th to 8th, maybe you can start having that discussion. But
It's not gonna go that low.
yeah, exactly. So, but in terms of how good of a player he is and what kind of productions you can expect, I think you can expect another great season from him. Just keep an eye on that production late, because if this trend continues, I don't know. We were really excited to see him cook at the beginning of the season, and we saw historical NFL numbers, fantasy numbers, and kind of a sour taste left in our mouths. And this is coming from a Russell Wilson fan. So
I
yeah,
think part of that at the beginning of the season was I know Chris Carson wasn't hurt, wasn't healthy at the beginning, and
true,
they
true.
this team really wants to run, and if they get a quarter or if
Running
they
back.
get a running back, that they really like, that they hoped, what was his name? Rashad Penny was supposed to be,
Yep.
or Chris Carson was supposed to be, but who isn't. I'm
You think
sorry, I'm just not a Chris Carson lover.
you
We'll
think
save
maybe
that for a different show. Save that
sure.
for a different
No, I was
show.
gonna say you think
This
maybe you
could
see
this could definitely go they could definitely go back to what they were, not this past season, but the season before, which was more run first, throw
right
second,
sooner in the
and
season, if not the whole season,
yeah,
is what you're concerned about. And I think I agree
exactly.
with you. And again, I'm not gonna really have to make that decision because I'm not gonna pay up to draft Russell Wilson. But
Pretty
two
much.
QBs could come up, or Superflex. I'm sorry, could come up. We
All
good?
right. Yeah, let's move on to number 7, which is number 1B in your heart. See, I'm just making this stuff up now. Um,
Right.
Ryan
Uh,
Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill. Hey Chris, do you know, I mean, we've did not done the show already, but do you know where he was drafted? Do you know what his ADP was?
I can only guess in the double digits.
Um, you would be right about that.
That's kind of a
And
broad
his
guess. Sorry.
ADP was 128.6. That's the 13th round.
Goodness,
The 28th quarterback drafted overall. 28th.
that's in the Aaron
Here's
Rodgers
here's got
neighborhood.
no, this was way after Aaron Rodgers. Here's a few quarterbacks that were drafted ahead of him. Derek Carr, Tua. Tua wasn't even named the starter yet, and Ryan Tannehill got drafted behind him. Drew Lock, Baker Mayfield, like the list goes on because there's like literally 27 other quarterbacks drafted ahead of him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's
Wh-
yeah. Yeah. He had a great season,
why?
man. He's good.
I mean, like I didn't believe in Ryan Tannehill because it was a small sample size, but I would have drafted him over those guys. Yeah, it's weird.
The
It
only
was a bizarre draft season for quarterbacks, I guess. I mean, outside of the like,
mhm,
Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes,
for
Deshaun
sure.
Watson, Russell Wilson. It got really weird after that because it was just yeah. Oh, and Lamar too, because everyone was taking Lamar super early. I mean, he had a good season. He wasn't great. It
Mhm.
was only 3,800 yards that he threw for. That I mean, he did have 7 rushing touchdowns, so that was interesting. I think that was a lot of that too was just part of that. I know that there was a few games where they would just fake it to Derrick Henry and like on the goal line, and everyone the entire defense would like jump on that, and he just kind of scamper in, you know.
Right, yeah. Yeah, the word that comes to mind for me is efficiency, because he's on an offense full of playmakers, so on one hand, that obviously helps him. On the other hand, you worry about volume occasionally with Tennessee because of the amount of how much they
He
run the ball with Derrick Henry.
he won't have those low games, and it's usually his
Mhm.
bad fantasy output games. At least since he's been with the Titans, aren't necessarily his play. It's just they don't need him to throw the ball that much because Derrick Henry is just running over people.
Right, right. But we're getting in that territory where we are start to talk about some values we might be looking at next year. He might get overblown and he may not end up being the value that I hope, but 33
I don't
passing
think he will
touchdowns
be.
is nothing to sneeze at. He's on an offense full of playmakers, and
Achoo!
I think that give right. I think that gives him opportunities. And I think I was looking at some statistics on PFF because I was working on some running back stuff. And did you know he was sixth in basically overall quarterback rating? I guess you call it offense is
Yeah.
what the column says.
Um.
But what
So
strikes me is how efficient he was on both pass and run ratings for them. Like it's just you could see him
right.
running 40 yards up the middle untouched occasionally, and this offense
Yeah.
makes you account for these playmakers, and he's a good fit. And that's all I have to say is
Hey,
that's the moral of the story is he's a good fit for this
that's what really
offense.
counts, I guess, for
Yeah,
football. Um. I got nothing else to say about Mr. Tannehill here. How about we move on to number 8?
onward and upward.
I love this picture that we have for Tom Brady here. Tom Brady is our number 8 quarterback. And for those of you out there who don't know me, I do not like Tom Brady because he played for the Patriots forever. And it's not that I hate the Patriots, which I do, but and let me rephrase it. I strongly dislike them. Um, I'm a Colts fan, and they have denied the Colts of a couple of Super Bowls. So hey, whatever. So Tom Brady pouting there. Yeah, love it. 4,600 yards
Perfect.
for him this
I'm
season,
gonna leave it
40
up a little longer.
touchdowns. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. This is the stat I love. 30 attempts, 6 yards. Tom Brady's not gonna run. He's not going
3
to.
touchdowns though.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure those were super short considering he only had
I
6
think the
yards
term
rushing.
is a lunge,
It's
Josh.
not a
I think it's
typo
a
either.
lunge.
It's seriously, it's not a typo. I had to double check. I like did a double take. I'm like 6 yards. Okay, Vinny Testaverde.
It's funny because I was just mentioning I could picture Tannehill a couple times every week or so. Not a couple times every week. Every couple of weeks, just busting open like 40 yards, and you're like, "Wow, he's fast." Oh yeah, he used to play receiver, and then we go to Brady and his lunges. Oh, that's
Anyways, I
great.
mean, so there was a let me see here. What do we have for an ADP on him? He was the 10th quarterback off the board and he was drafted in the 9th round. So that's pretty appropriate. I think he just went lower this season. No one really knew exactly what was going to happen with him moving to Tampa Bay.
Concerned
Everyone
about
was
age,
excited for
concerned
his
about new team. Sure.
yeah, everyone was more hyped for his wide receivers and 40 touchdowns, man, that is definitely nothing to sneeze at. Like um as much as I don't really like Tom Brady as
He ended up being quite the
on
value,
a
didn't he?
personal level, you have to definitely respect that he has the ability to play quarterback in the NFL. So
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
the goat.
that's about as high a praise as I'm going to give Tom Brady. And people who want to draft him, like, go ahead, that's fine. He won't touch my teams for personal reasons, and that's fine. I'm okay with it. So whatever. I think next year we'll have to see how his receiving core shakes out. I have this weird feeling that maybe Chris Godwin might not be there.
It's hard to say.
Maybe not Mike Evans. I don't think both of them are going to stay. I think
I
that
don't think it
team
would make sense long term for the team. Even next year wouldn't make sense, assuming you do get Antonio Brown back and assuming you get him for a complete off season. Hopefully pandemic free, or at least more of an open off season. I think Antonio Brown just gets better, and they might defer to
maybe.
him more.
I
Uh,
have this weird feeling that you're forgetting about Scotty Miller, and I'm not joking. Like the dude he's probably the fastest guy on the team.
well,
He's a
considering
little bit
Brown can play
smaller.
outside, also, I mean, I could see
Yeah,
them.
and I
Uh,
mean
what's
Godwin could play
what's the
outside as
term?
well. Like
Addition by subtraction.
everyone thought that Justin Jefferson was just a slot guy, and same with Adam Thielen, and they both thrived on the outside this season.
Hmm.
So it's not unheard of that guys that are quote unquote slot receivers get moved to the
Hmm.
outside and
Hmm.
have success. So you know,
I
just
think
saying.
I think you have to get
We're not talking about the wide receivers. Let's move on to number 9.
gotcha.
Unless you got something else to say about Tom Brady.
Just about Brady. I think it just showed his growing pains with the new offense and the new team, and again going
For
back to
sure. That's a good point.
abbreviated offense with those interceptions and that lower completion percentage. So you can expect
Yeah.
that to probably return to normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. That's
Cool.
all I got.
That was a really good point. Yeah, I think it'll be a little bit more smooth sailing for Brady next year. Let's move on to number 9 on our list, which is Justin Herbert.
Which is number one in your
Or
heart.
no, he's not number 1 in my heart. But
What?
that's no,
Oh, okay.
no. Number 1 in my heart is not on this list, unfortunately. Um, Justin Herbert, everyone knows the story on him. Tyrod Taylor got his lung punctured right before the week 2 game, and Herbie came out and dude, he was phenomenal.
Balled out.
Um, everyone was kind of like doubting him and everything, and I mean, he threw for over 4,300 yards. Like, I believe these are both records. 4,300 yards for a rookie is a record. 31 touchdowns is definitely a record for a rookie quarterback. 10 interceptions, but only
Hey,
10
that's
for a guy for
I would be
for
okay
a
with like
rookie.
18, dude. I would be okay with 8. If I'm a Chargers fan and he just put up a season like that in his rookie year, I'm okay with like 18 interceptions, honestly, because they'll work on that. He'll work on that. I think
But
he's
10? Yeah, dude,
yeah,
it's
that's
gonna
great.
be good. I think Chargers fans should be really, really
Excited.
happy with what that I think even this coaching staff has to be kind of mildly shocked or the front office, because they fired their head coach. But like the front office has to be at least mildly surprised, be like,
It,
we didn't
some
expect this dude to be this good.
you gotta give them credit. They're the ones who took him. They're the ones who picked him. But sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. You know.
Yep.
I mean, their
Yep.
front office did the work. They had him in the first round. You can't really argue against him. But you're right. It was kind of fortuitous. I would tend to agree with you.
And they should send the Miami Dolphins a thank you card, just saying thank you for taking Tua, so we
And they
didn't have
moved
to.
up,
And
didn't they? Miami moved up to get Tua.
no,
They didn't. Oh, okay. Well,
no,
that situation could still. We'll see. Could still bear itself out. I mean, I think obviously the winner right now would be Herbert and the Chargers, but their careers
I don't
might
know
be
about
kind
Herbert.
of looked at side by side as we go forward.
Oh, that of course they will, because
Mm.
it's like Marcus Mariota and what's his name,
Jameis.
Jameis Winston,
Mm-hmm.
and you know other quarterback. I mean, it happens all the time, man. Um, I don't, you know, as long as Herbert, you know, keeps his weapons more or less intact. I mean, he was doing good with, I can't remember the number 2 or 3, or I'm sorry, 3 and 4 guys in that wide receiver core, but
Right.
he was good with those guys too, and kind of made him look okay. I mean, Mike Williams had a couple of good games without
And
Keenan
they
Allen.
and they remained somewhat competitive too. So yeah,
Their defense was really banged up and
yeah,
or terrible,
yeah.
and there was some bad play calling in some games, especially towards the end of some games, which is not
I feel like there's
exactly
some bad
Herbert's
time
fault.
management specifically with play calling, isn't
Yeah,
there? Yep.
yes.
And that's
So,
yeah.
yep. Anyways,
I had one
well,
last thing
hopefully
before we
they'll
moved
get,
on that touched
yeah.
on that exact point. He had a stretch where he averaged 13 and a half points week 12 through 14, but it was versus some very good defenses and Keenan and Allen.
Hmm.
Keenan Allen was in and out of the lineup. So
Yep.
I just wanted to touch on that as far as this guy.
They might lose Hunter Henry. Um, if they don't want to keep Mike Evans, they could certainly get rid of him.
Mike Williams. Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's what I meant.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, but they definitely have Keenan Allen for next year. I'm guessing they're gonna. I mean, it's Mike Williams' 5th-year deal, so yeah, he costs a little bit more, but whatever.
Fifth year
You know.
option. Yeah. First round
Yes.
pick, wasn't he?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, let's move on to number
Hmm.
10 here. Number 10 on our list, and number 0 in my heart. Um, it is Lamar Jackson. I'm sorry, I really don't think Lamar Jackson is really all that great. The guy, he completed 64% of his passes this year, but which is really, that's good. That's like
Sure.
a little bit, that's right at or a little bit above NFL average. He looked terrible doing it. He really, really did. I know some of it could be his receiving weapons and everything like that, but he
Hmm.
just didn't look in sync with any of his pass catching options this season. And maybe it was just a short off season because of the pandemic and everything. And I know he had a little over 1,000 yards rushing,
Hmm.
and that's what everyone wants out of Lamar Jackson. But man, what if this arm talent really doesn't pan out and he's just, I don't know, like okay, so in baseball, there's a thing where, like, say you're really good on defense, but you're not very good at the plate to bat, but your
Sure.
defense is so good that teams will keep you around despite having like besides not getting on base all that often, or like vice versa, where your defense is really bad, but your
D-
bat is so good that they don't care, you
Baseball
know.
is huge for role players,
But
absolute specialists, if you will.
but
Hmm.
at some point, if you're not, if say your defensive skills dry up just a little bit, they're just gonna be like, "No, we're done with you."
Now
Like,
you're
"Yeah, we can't
expendable.
overlook these glaring problems anymore." I wonder if that's gonna happen with Lamar Jackson at some point. And they're talking about giving him an extension this offseason. I think it's a huge mistake. I think it's a huge mistake.
First of all, great
I
analogy, I'd say. I love the analogy. I really do. Um, I
Yeah, I mean,
think.
well, like, if he
Go ahead.
continues to not put up very good numbers with his arm, and if the rushing numbers don't, if he doesn't, say he doesn't get 1,000 yards next season, say he only gets like 600, and he only puts up 2,700 yards,
Hmm.
you know, through the air with 26 touch, maybe that interception number jumps up to like 14. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not
No.
looking at a very good quarterback there.
Yeah. Again, I love the analogy, and I think what fans of Lamar. fantasy drafters in general need to realize is your argument needs to be brought up. It needs to be some credence needs to be given to it. However, I am kind of on the other side of it in terms of I think he showed us some things at the end of the year with his arm.
It's true. He did. He
And
did
I
look
also
better.
think, like I said, your analogy was great in terms of I think the team realizes there are still some limitations there, and quite frankly, probably will be there for a lot of his career. But I also think that there's room to work on things.
They need to get some better
I think he
weapons.
came out like gangbusters in 2019. I think defenses adjusted in 2020. I think the bringing in of Dez kind of shows us something. Not that is a replacement for anybody, but and I know he's obviously no longer an alpha, and he was very limited types of snaps. But he's that big body type of guy. Like I would like to see Lamar with a true number one, if you will. I hate using that phrase because it feels like it's overused, but you know what I mean? A guy that's 6'2", 200 plus
Well,
pounds.
a true number one doesn't have to be that size. Look at Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, like Michael Thomas, just a big possession, kind of don't have to be the most accurate quarterback in the world because while I don't think Lamar is Cam bad when it comes to inaccuracy,
No, I don't
historical
think so either.
inaccuracy. But I also think you have a point that he's he's not Tom Brady or whatever you want to throw out there. I just think the team is still a very good team. I think the quarterback is still a very great athlete and a great and a good enough thrower of the ball, and maybe just a little bit better than good enough. Is kind of where I lie. So I'm sorry, I don't mean to split hairs there, but that's where I'm at with Lamar in big picture. With fantasy, again, super flex, you got to keep an eye on him, especially if his value, if his ADP does go down because of these concerns we talked about.
I I wonder what his ADP is going to be next year.
Me too.
I don't think because of this season, I don't know where I honestly have no idea where it's gonna be. I mean, he
That's
was
kind of what
going
I'm
in the
getting at.
second round next year. I
It's a
wonder
big
if it's
question
gonna be
mark.
more like a 5th or 6th round,
And
which
at
even
least
then
at
is
that point, I can
still too
start.
rich for me, but yeah,
Well, and it's going to be too rich for you because,
that
like
seems
you
more.
said at the beginning of your argument, you said, "Listen, guys, you're more or less out on him because you don't believe in him
Well,
long term."
I meant for any quarterback really, but I
Uh,
mean, like, that
Understood.
the you're
Understood.
getting into more of the range of reasonability, like
I agree.
5th
I
or 6th
completely
round
agree.
is the 5th or 6th round is usually where I might start eyeing quarterbacks. I'm definitely not taking them there,
Hmm.
but I'll start looking like as wide receiver and running back talent starts to dry up. Tight end talent has already dried up at that point.
Yep, I'm with you. Sixth or eighth
Yeah,
round is the
I
very
start really
earliest.
kind of eyeing quarterbacks. This is not a quarterback I would eye, but that's me. That's me personally.
I got you.
That's a personal opinion.
Got you.
So let's move on to number 11 here,
Good
which is a
stuff.
real
Good stuff.
shock. A real shock here.
Yep.
Um, it's Kirk
35
Cousins.
touchdowns. Dang.
35, and honestly, a lot of this is I mean, there are some games where he had some down games. He did have a really bad game against the Colts, and that was his fault. But some of his lesser points in weeks is mainly just because of Dalvin Cook. They were just like hammering defenses with Dalvin Cook. You
Hmm.
know,
Hmm. That's good.
so yeah, I mean, Kirk Cousins, 35 touchdowns, like you said, man. I mean, you can't argue with that. You got over 4,200 passing yards. A lot of this is the emergence of Justin Jefferson. Like it really helped out
Hmm.
Kirk Cousins here. Adam Thielen is great and everything, but that offense needed Justin Jefferson to step up and be
Couldn't agree more. Yeah.
and be their next a wide receiver on the field, and he totally did. He totally stepped up and then
Hmm.
probably surpassed even the team's expectations of him. I just I love Justin Jefferson. I love Adam Thielen, and I think Kirk Cousins should definitely people should not forget about him and what he did this season, and especially if you're a guy like me who likes to wait on quarterback.
Yep.
You know, I
Amen.
mean, usually I start looking at week 1 matchups for my when I draft my quarterback just to see what their week 1 matchup is. But if Cousins draws someone like, I don't know, the Jets or whatever,
Yeah,
in week
Dallas
1,
maybe. Yeah.
perfect. Perfect. You know,
Hmm.
maybe I don't look at schedule too long beyond week 1, but if he has like, you
But
know,
but you're talking about a
Detroit,
double
if
digit
he has
round pick that's a borderline, I would say borderline, not a
Mm-hmm.
throwaway pick, but it's kind of a throwaway pick. Like you're already looking
Right.
at
If
week
you
one,
if
be
you
like,
if you swing and miss, and
oh
you're
well,
gonna miss,
12th round.
yeah,
You know, I
yeah.
took my guess at a week one 30-point game or something. You know, yeah, absolutely, good strategy.
I don't have much else to say about Kirk Cousins. I mean,
I just put
he's a
that
fine quarterback.
him keeping interceptions down to 13 is great for him. Honestly,
Yeah, it
I'm
is.
not
It
even
is.
trying to be that funny. Like that's decent. That's fine. I'm cool with that.
I would
Six in the
I would like
NFL
to
in
say
passing
that
touchdowns with
even though
35.
he's even though he's number 11 on our list, he's still, a good 20 some points
Well, I
behind,
know what
well,
else I was going to
even
say. You
number
said don't
10.
forget about him. That's what we do every single offseason. Everybody forgets about Cousins, and look at him. No, he's going to be a value for sure. I like it.
All right, let's move on to number 12 on our list. I love this. This is my favorite picture out of all of these. It's number
I
12
got.
is Matt Ryan.
Hold on, I gotta.
Yeah, bro. Yeah.
I wish I had more hair. I could just. It's great. All right, we're just gonna leave this up for the rest of the show. Thank you very much. Have a
That's
good night.
great.
No, I'm just kidding.
And mic drop. Matt Ryan, great picture. He surprisingly had over 4,500 yards,
Mhm.
only 26 touchdowns. Um, he had some real problems this season, and it was a lack of Julio Jones. And you can say towards the end of the season, when Julio was more or less done for the season, him and Calvin Ridley really started to click. But there are some games in there where you could look when Matt Ryan had a bad game, you could see and you can look and see, oh, Julio was out that game. And then you like 3 weeks later, Matt Ryan, bad game. Oh, Julio was out that game. He's one of those quarterbacks where he really likes to have he's had a safety blanket his entire career, actually. It started
Mhm.
with I believe it started with Roddy White, and then it moved to Julio, you know?
Yeah.
And is that right? I'm
Say it again.
I
He had
think
Roddy
so.
White, then moved to Julio.
I
Yeah,
think
Roddy was the
so.
one at the time. Didn't Julio have like a 900-yard rookie season or something? It's still very
Yeah, yeah,
impressive.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, so he was struggling with some transition to trust in Calvin Ridley, and Calvin Ridley was frankly pretty darn good towards the end of the season.
Yep.
He was good
Yep.
in season, like in the beginning too, with Julio out there too.
Yep.
Um, you know, I don't know what else to say other than Julio gives Matt Ryan the confidence that he needs. I guess I don't know. Maybe Julio's on the sideline being like, "You got this, man. You got this.
You can do
You're
it,
the
buddy.
best.
We believe in
You're
you.
the best. Just throw me the ball, but not in the red zone. Not in the red zone. I don't want to score touchdowns.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Oh,
not in my
that's so
contract.
frustrating.
No, just that kind of like Cousins. I feel like he's a guy we forget about every year. And just keep an eye on the offense as a whole because I still believe it's a good offense. We just touched on the
Yep.
receivers. If they get a running back in there, I mean, I feel like the offensive line is usually dependable. That fluctuates year in and year out for
Uh,
every team. But keep your eye on the Atlanta offense because I think you can find value in Matt Ryan in the later rounds every single fantasy season. And
yeah.
this shows us that statistic exactly. Yeah. So
Yep. His touchdown should go up next year. So
that too. That's a good
yeah.
point. More like 30, 32. Agreed.
Yeah. Yeah. What's a quarterback that's not in our list here? That's not Dak that could make it into our top 12 next year.
Did we do that on the last show? Did I go? Did I
Yes,
take the
yeah,
low hanging
yeah.
fruit? That sounds like something funny I would do. Anyway, I'm gonna go Tua. I know
You.
again you're kind of a detractor. I'm kind of a believer.
I
If
want to I want to see more from him. Let's put it
and
that
I
way.
think everybody would agree that's completely fair. Even from my perspective, I'd like to see a little more too. But in a speculation segment of the show like this, I think he's the perfect candidate. We have a team on the up and up in Miami. I think, and
Mhm.
that goes around to the defense and the offense and the coach and the quarterback. Because I think Fitzpatrick will probably next year's elsewhere, but I don't know that for sure. And I think the in and out of the lineup a little bit we saw there with Tua and Fitzpatrick. There's nothing to be too concerned about there. I think the head coach is just I don't think he cares what people think, and I think he's kind of a new school coach, and I think he's going to do what he wants to do. Anyway, I believe in Tua's athleticism and ability to throw from a platform, and I believe in the offense and the weapons he has around him as long as the offensive line is good. Yeah.
Cool. I got to go with number one, my heart, Matthew Stafford.
Ah.
If
Great
Yeah,
pick,
he
by
had
the
a
way.
down.
Great pick.
He definitely had a down year this year. A lot of it was he missed Kenny Galladay for the entire season.
Do they have a head coach yet?
More on that whenever if we ever get news on what happened with him this year. I don't know if he's going. I don't know if Kenny Galladay is going to be in Detroit next season. I don't know if Matt Stafford is going to be in Detroit next season. That
Hmm.
I have a feeling he's going to be. But if he gets some weapons around him, either gets Kenny G back and someone else, or they bring in a couple of you know, like some short term answers for Matt Stafford, he's good enough. He's definitely good enough to easily crack the top 12. He just had a really
I think
down
he's
year
good enough
this
to
year.
have a playoff run before he, winds
I
down
would
his
love to
career.
see it.
Me too. Me
That
too.
team cannot put together a defense. That's the problem.
Hmm. Hmm.
That
Oh, they can't
defense has
put
been
together a lot of
so
things,
terrible. That defense has been so terrible for so long. They
and
just can't.
they've always mismanaged talent, generally speaking. You
Oh
know,
yeah, of course.
it's kind of embarrassing actually, but no, it's a great pick. Great pick.
All right, cool. Um, so next week we were actually later today we will be releasing our running backs 1 through 12, and then the week after that we will do quarterbacks 13 through 24. And then moving on after that, we'll do the top 24 receivers. The same with running backs is the first half of that will be 1 week, the second half will be the next.
Hmm.
And we'll move on to tight ends and we'll see what
Just one
happens
show for
moving
tight ends,
forward
like
with that.
quarterbacks. Yeah.
Yeah, it might even be like a half a show because like it's just there's like two tight ends to talk about and the rest of them are hot garbage.
Right.
So
Exactly.
whatever.
But yeah. So we might throw, like you said before, we might throw in some extra tidbits into that show. But we'll see
Yep.
what happens moving forward from there. Because, but yeah, we're having a blast recording. Can't wait to get back to streaming. We're gonna do that in the regular season, right? Maybe August.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and we'll throw up a
Yeah.
couple probably during draft time, maybe. But anyway, like you
What?
said, we'll see what streams around draft time.
Yeah.
Just like a
But
hangout.
we're if you are listening to this in podcast format, we do have a
Thank you.
YouTube video of this exact episode, or and if you're watching us on YouTube, we have a podcast which we're trying to get into Apple Podcasts. They're being stubborn about it for whatever reason. They're difficult, but it is on Chris really likes Podcast Addict. I use the Google
Yeah.
platform. It is also on Spotify and like all those non-Apple podcast major platforms where you can pick up your podcast.
Yeah. And if you're Apple guy, you can just pick up the Google Podcast app for temporarily to check us out.
Or Spotify,
Spotify, you
or
probably already
even
have. Yeah.
Podcast Addict, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good point. Good point. Yeah, I'm excited, man.
And all right, let's tune in for our next show about the top 12 running backs. Until then, stay safe, everyone. And remember, if you don't dot your I's and cross your T's, you just end up with a bunch of L's.
And nobody likes an L.
Exactly. Goodbye, everyone.